It's Pirate Radio Night. Ha ha ha, me hearties. Whoopee.
Good evening and welcome along to Pirate Radio Night. Yes, a television first to celebrate the great music that came from the seas during the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. This is Pirate Radio Night on the Red Channel. Now, back in the 1960s, you'd have seen me on this beach with a little transistor radio, and not only could I listen to the pirates, but I could also see them, because Radio Caroline was just on the horizon. Just a bit further along was Radio London, and right at the very end was a ship with two radio stations on, Swinging Radio England and Britain Radio. And I remember being a schoolboy in the 1960s and being absolutely fascinated by the music, the DJs that was coming from my transistor radio. It probably changed my life. I think it did. But I remember listening very sadly to Big L closing down on August the 14th, 1967. Our first film looks at the Big L story. It looks at how a group of businessmen found an old World War II minesweeper, converted it in Miami, Florida, and brought it across the UK to become, well, one of the best radio stations I think this country has ever had. People like Kenny Everett, John Peel, Tony Blackburn, Ed Stewart, they all cut their teeth on Big L and of course went on to join the BBC and Radio 1. So let's look at the Big L story right here on Pirate Radio Night.
East Anglian Productions presents
This is the story of a radio station which would revolutionize British broadcasting. Challenge the might of the BBC radio monopoly and antagonize the government of the day.
The pirates are a menace, and I don't believe at all that the public wouldn't support action to enforce the law.
We live under the rule of law in this country, and these people are acting quite illegally. And it's no good complaining about lawlessness in our towns and cities if they can cock a snook at the law on the seas round our shores.
Radio Caroline had been an instant success with listeners playing music all day long. Radio London established over 12 million listeners. And stations based on the Thames Estuary forts, like Radio 390 and Radio City, had very loyal audiences. But this is the story of Big L. Radio London.
Are the pop pirates here to stay? More questions in the Commons this afternoon.
The explosion in popular music and the invention of the transistor radio during the swinging 60s meant that there couldn't be a better time to liberate the UK's radio airwaves.
Eve, the woman's magazine of the year, presented by Radio 390.
If you're driving along in your car, there's no better company than the sounds of Radio London.
Listen, fella, Mick loves it, whatever your name is. Would you cut the chatter and let's have more platter? Number 4.
The UK's expanding youth market had not been catered for, and now pirate radio was reaching the four corners of the UK, at work, at home, and in the office.
The number 1 song in the world for Dusty Springfield.
This is Radio Caroline on 199 meters, your all-day music station, Britain's first commercial radio station. My name's Tom Lloyd, your disc jockey for the next hour.
With two ships, Caroline North off the Isle of Man and Caroline South off the Essex coast, Radio Caroline was to pioneer offshore broadcasting in Great Britain. The station soon became household names, and many other businessmen and entrepreneurs would attempt to emulate their success. One of them was Don Pearson from Eastland, Texas, and Tom Danaher from Wichita Falls in North Texas. Tom ran a VW dealership, and these two guys set about starting a radio station that would be the best of them all. But first of all, they would need a ship.
Dateline, Tampa, Florida, 1944. On February 6th, the Admirable-class minesweeper USS Density is launched. On June 15th, under the command of Lieutenant Commander Robert Forrester Jr., Density enters service, first as a training ship at San Diego before sailing for Pearl Harbor and war duties in the Pacific. March 19th, 1945, Density leaves Ulithi to sweep mines ahead of the invasion of Okinawa on April 1st. April 6th, a full-scale kamikaze attack is made on the U.S. fleet, and the Density, unscathed, goes to the assistance of the badly damaged USS Rodman, picking up 16 survivors and towing her to Karamaretto. April 22nd, the bitter fighting continues. USS Density is under fire once more, sustaining only minor damage before rescuing 3 survivors from USS Isherwood. April 27th, Density shoots down an enemy aircraft. Valuable intelligence material, including a secret code book and photographs, are found on a body recovered from the plane. May 4th, Density sinks an enemy suicide boat off Okinawa before sailing to join the American Third Fleet strikes against Japan. August 15th, 1945, and the war is over. But our gallant ship remains on occupation duty until November 20th, when she sails home to join the reserve fleet at Orange, Texas. Her fighting days are over, but not before receiving 3 battle stars for her wartime service. March 3rd, 1947. Just over 3 years since her launch, the USS Density is finally decommissioned. But who knows what future now lies ahead for this brave little ship and the brave men who sailed with her, risking their lives for freedom and democracy. All America salutes you, Density, and long may you sail.
In September 1964, Don Pearson and Tom Danaher fitted out their newly acquired ship, the Manula, at Dade County Dry Dock in Miami, Florida. Weeks of repairs were necessary: welding, painting, and installing of a 50-kilowatt RCA Ampliphase AM transmitter. Powerful generators and a specially manufactured 212-foot radio mast would need to be installed. The ship would be renamed the MV Galaxy. This is Captain Cool Waters, who would sail the MV Galaxy to the UK shores. Here's Bill Carr, one of the radio engineers. The 212-foot radio mast, fully rigged and painted, is craned into position. Radio London would commission a jingle package produced by Pams in Dallas, bringing the slick sound of US radio IDs to the UK airwaves.
You're hearing things. You're hearing things. On Wonderful Radio London.
On the 22nd of October 1964, the MV Galaxy is ready to leave Miami.
It's smooth sailing with the highly successful sound of Wonderful Radio London.
We're gonna move, yeah, 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 yeah. We're gonna groove, yeah, 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 yeah. We're gonna prove, yeah, yeah, that you'll hear all there is to hear. Right here on Wonderful Radio London. Yeah, 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 yeah.
She calls at San Juan in Puerto Rico, and then to Funchal in the Madeira Islands and Lisbon in Portugal for additional work and repairs.
The fastest thing in the air.
Wonderful Radio London.
Radio engineer Bill Carr arrives with other members of the crew. Essential transmitter spare parts and coax cable is flown in and taken to the ship.
Esta es la estación número 1 en London, England. Es mi favorita. Wonderful Radio London. Olé! Have you ever been?
Have you ever been?
Well, needless to say, you're okay with Wonderful Radio London.
Wonderful Radio London, biggest sound around Big L.
Well, if you're feeling down, come on and get happy. With Wonderful Radio London.
Wonderful Radio London, where your hearing swings. The music sings on Wonderful Radio London. Big L.
On the 19th of November 1964, the MV Galaxy arrives in the Thames estuary. And on the 23rd of December, Radio London is on the air.
Oh, yeah, Cliff Richard having a ball. That is called I Could Fall in Love with You and throw the panto. Aladdin and his wonderful little old lamp.
Radio London would soon establish itself as the leading offshore station and make household names of many of its DJs. Tony Windsor, Pete Brady, Dave Cash, Kenny Everett, Dave Dennis, Paul Kay, Ed Stewart, Keith Skews and Tony Blackburn. Musically, via the Fab 40 show, the station was ahead of the UK music charts, playing the Beatles, Stones, Who, Kinks, Cream, Cat Stevens and Hendrix records ahead of anyone else.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, little ones and kittens, this is the Stu Part Show with Mike Lennox from now until 6 o'clock. We're going to have a good time. It's a rave-up afternoon. Watch out now for the number 5 sounds of the Big L Fabulous 40. This is Roy C. Here comes the bride of shotgun wedding.
People are standing all around at a shotgun wedding here in this town.
There is a crew of 30 men on the MV Galaxy. The ship's crew, technicians and broadcasting staff work a shift system of 2 weeks on board the ship and a week ashore. A daily tender service brings fresh food, fuel and mail. They eat, sleep and work together in cramped quarters. But this environment creates a form of camaraderie between the DJs, which is very noticeable on air. Spare time is spent watching TV, playing cards, sunbathing in summer, and answering mail. Thousands of letters arrived on board each week from the millions of fans. But growing pressure from the government was starting to gain momentum. And Radio London's managing director looked at ways for Radio London to survive, possibly by coming ashore.
What we do know is that we have demonstrated that, again, our audience of 10 million people like to be able to tune into to popular music when it suits them. As I say, possibly in the middle of the night, and not to be restricted by, in an artificial sense, by needle time. On the other point to remember on this, of course, is that it is not cheap to run a radio station at sea. It's a very expensive operation. Keeping a ship of this size at sea, manned all the time with a crew of 30, is an expensive way to run a radio station. It would be much more economical to bring it ashore, as we hope the government will let us.
But the Labour government of the day were determined to close down the pirates.
I don't think it's an inconvenient bill, because I don't think that if people knew and understood the truth about the pirates, they'd like them very much. What are they doing? They're stealing the copyright and paying no money for it. They're playing records that musicians have recorded and giving them no money for it. They're endangering the ship-to-shore radio, and there's a real risk that distress at sea might not be reported because of the inadequate fumbling handling of equipment. The pirates are a menace, and I don't believe at all that the public wouldn't support action to enforce the law in the interests of all these people whom I've mentioned, quite aside from interference in other countries.
Well, then, can you say that the pirates will be off the air by the end of next year, or anyway that legislation will be enforced to take them off the air?
I can't peer into a crystal ball, but I can say this, that this government, and I believe any government, would enforce existing law, would carry legislation through, and that the pirate radio ships have no future at all. I'm quite convinced of that, and I think the sooner they're convinced of it, the better.
Do you fear government action against the pirate ships?
Oh no, there's the kind of action that we think the government is likely to take is positive action. In other words, we feel now that the government recognizes that there is a demand for the service that we're providing, and that they're likely to arrange for the same sort of service to be provided on the land, so that we don't anticipate direct action against us, but perhaps competitive action against us, the government could conceivably make it illegal to advertise on Radio London.
What would you do
This
then?
would be difficult legislation as far as the government's concerned, because most of Radio London's clients are large international companies and could quite easily place the advertising from Paris or New York.
If the government wanted to close you up or wanted to seize you, I mean, what would you do then?
Well, we don't think the government would seize us. You see, the operation of Radio London is legal in every way. It is quite legal to broadcast from the high seas. In fact, the first illegal action would be just that, if a government decided to seize a ship that was at sea and behaving in a legal manner.
But the argument to close the pirates down went on.
It's necessary to prevent chaos in broadcasting in Europe. The medium wavelengths are all allocated to various countries by an international agreement. We've got our allotment in this country. The pirate stations pinch these medium wavelengths, and it means, of course, that in other countries they very often can't hear their own local station because of our pirates. This is especially the case in Sweden. That's the first reason. The second reason is that these 9 or 10 ships around our shores are a hazard to shipping because of the interference with radio communications. And thirdly, of course, we live under the rule of law in this country, and these people are acting quite illegally, and it's no good complaining about lawlessness in our towns and cities if they can cock a snook at the law on the seas round our shores.
And how will the bill achieve your object?
Well, the bill is aimed at doing this without violence, of course, without boarding parties and gunboats and this sort of thing. The offence, the broadcasting itself is an offence, will become an offence, but it also becomes an offence to either place advertising with the pirate ships or to supply them with records or equipment or food or anything of that kind.
But it was the happenings surrounding Radio City in June 1966 that were to do the offshore broadcasters no good at all. These events over the next few days would prove to be the death knell for the offshore stations.
In commander's style, the raiders boarded Radio City early last Monday morning, round about 3 a.m. But news of the raid only filtered back to land yesterday. All lines of communication from Radio City had been effectively cut as a precaution. But the line of operation, the real thing proper, started last Sunday afternoon when a man as yet unidentified went to a Gravesend shipyard and told the skippers there that he wanted to hire a tug. He said he and his friends were going on a mystery tour. Well, the mystery tour ended here, Radio City, 12 miles out in the Thames estuary from Whitstable. At 3 a.m., just a few hours after the last pop record had been played and the station had closed down for the night, a boarding party moored up its tug alongside these 30-foot-high concrete pillars and then clambered up using grappling irons. Then they held hostage the 3 disc jockeys aboard and the 7 recording gear. And it seems that they're still here. As you can see at the top there, getting ready to lower the lift to take on supplies, are members of the party, the raiding party. It looks as if they have every intention of staying there. Radio City, where the government has failed, has for the time being at least been effectively silenced.
Radio London had plans to take over Radio City's Shivering Sands fort and broadcast UKGM, a sweet music station. But the following day, Radio City's boss, Reg Calvert, is shot dead.
Dateline, Wednesday, June the 22nd. Essex. William Oliver Smedley has been charged with the murder of Reg Calvert, the head of Radio City, who was found dead in a house in Saffron Walden this morning. Smedley was remanded in custody for a fortnight. Mr. Calvert died from a gunshot wound in the chest.
A month later, and the Marine Offences Act received its first reading in the House of Commons. Despite on-air appeals for listeners to write to their MPs and to number 10 Downing Street, nothing could be done to stop the legislation. A year later, Radio London would be preparing to close down.
And has come up with an imitation of Radio London, which supposedly starts on BBC One, or Radio 1, on September the 30th. Many of the Radio London DJs have been hired by the BBC to help run this radio station. and already they are copying our jingles, and this is very flattering. But I feel that the population as a whole would like to have the BBC and Radio London, not one trying to beat the other.
What are you doing here tonight?
Supporting Free Radio.
How can you support them now they're going off the air?
Keep listening.
But if they go off the air, how can you keep listening?
Well, they're going to do it illegally, aren't they?
Today is the day the singing has to stop. The moment of truth for Britain's pop pirates. Tonight at midnight, the Marine Broadcasting Bill comes into force. Monday's had a special significance here ever since December 1964, when Radio London, Britain's second pirate radio station, went on the air. Every Monday since then, a tender's been leaving Felixstowe for the Galaxy, the Radio London boat, 8 miles over the water. And today, the last boat leaves in a few moments. Before it does, I'd like to have a word with some of the people who are going on it. I wonder if you can tell me how you feel about today. Now, Dennis Maitland, you're the Administration Director for Radio London.
That's right. Well, obviously, all of us are feeling very unhappy about today. None of us are looking forward to going out to the ship. It's going to be a rough ride in any case, and we're certainly not looking forward to the time when we come off. This is not a good day for any of us. It's a very sad one.
Now, you're a disc jockey. What does today mean to you?
Well, like Dennis, a very sad day indeed. I can only hope that what we've done on Radio London over the past 3 years is going to be of help for the future when commercial radio comes.
Well, when London's off the air, it leaves only one illegal broadcasting station, Radio Caroline.
That afternoon at 2 o'clock, the final hour of Radio London was broadcast.
And now, Radio London presents their final hour.
You're hearing things. You're hearing things. On Wonderful Radio London.
Yes, thank you, Paul, and a very good afternoon to you all. Ed Stewart here with Myrtle. Hello, Myrtle. Hello, dear. And Paul, well, we've got fun for the next hour, haven't we?
Yes, indeed, and we're not alone with Myrtle because we also have Cliff Richard.
Many thanks for all the plugs in the past, and thanks for being so nice about our records. Hope and wish you all the very best for the future, staff and DJs, and whatever you do.
Hello, this is Lulu speaking. I'd just like to say how awful I feel that Big L is going off the air, because when I'm in my car every day I have it blaring like mad, and I really will miss it. I don't know about anybody else.
Hello, this is Mick Jagger here, and saying hello to Radio London. We're very sad to see you go. We hope to see you one day again. So you've given us a lot of good times. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Hi there, this is Dusty Springfield on Radio London, and I suppose it's sort of sad, really, saying a goodbye to all the people who listen to Radio London, and that's millions and millions, I'm sure. And I hope it won't be too long before we're all again listening to Big L. I want to thank everybody there for being so kind to me and playing my records.
This is Ringo, and I'm just saying cheerio to all you Radio London listeners, because as you know, we're going off the air. It's a bit of a pity, and the radio will never be the same, but it's one of those things. Cheerio.
Big L time is 3 o'clock, and Radio London is now closing down.
Oh, did you hear that? Oh, no. How ridiculous. Oh, this is really... What are they going to do now?
Look, you just heard Radio London go off there. What do you think of it?
I think it's ridiculous,
Why?
really. Well,
Do you listen to it much?
Yes,
What are you going to do
all
now?
the time. I don't know. I suppose listen to the BBC instead, you know.
I'm not going to listen to BBC because
Why
they don't
not?
plug any good records.
We're never going to have to listen to BBC. It's bound to be dead.
Okay, but if not, I don't think it'll be any good.
Well, they've got some of the pirate DJs going, I understand.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe they will then. Give them a try anyway.
Wonderful Big L. Wonderful Big L, wonderful Radio London.
Well, there we are. That was the Big L story, and Big L was certainly my favourite radio station of the 1960s. You're watching Pirate Radio Night right here on the Red Channel 186 on Sky. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking to John Ross Barnard, who spent some time on one of those wartime forts in the Thames Estuary. And don't forget, you can buy a lot of Pirate Radio memorabilia on the radiofab.com website. Just check it out. You can find all sorts of things, DVDs, videos, books, jingles, documentaries, and a whole lot more. So join us again a bit later on